Si di 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 da 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 da. Ay la la, ay la la da da. Oh, 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 oh. Ay la la, ay la la, ay la la. Di la la la. Ay la 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 la. Ay la la, ay la 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 la. Oh, ay, ay la la, ay la la, ay la la. Tneinã na na, ay la la. Oh, ay ay la la, ay la la. Oh, ay la 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 la. Ay la 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 la. Ay la la ay la la ay la 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 la. Di la 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 ay la la ay la 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 la. Ay la la ay la la ay la la. The Chaim to Zahava and Chayer. Of course, my mother is actually traveling now on a cruise, transatlantic cruise. So hopefully she get a chance to watch this lesson, and Yael, and dedicating this lesson to the neshama of Akiva Moshe ben Reuven and Chasha Shifra Halevi, who's a friend of mine, who passed away last week, and he actually used to watch this class, not every week, but he would watch the class, or at least part of the class. I like to say in the class, Shalom Aleichem to anybody who watches in the future, and he would write like 8 hours after the class, now it's the future. And unfortunately, he was sick, and he had a heart attack, and he died, 53 years old. And so, Hashem should give his neshama and aliyah. I'll leave this in the Sefer. Bezat Hashem, I'll remember to dedicate the classes in his memory for a while. Bezat Hashem. And everyone should be healthy. So we're going to start learning. We finished, of course, Torah Dalid. I should say you never really finish learning in the Likutey Moharan, right? But we finished a cycle of learning the lesson, and I was looking around trying to figure out what are we going to learn next. And I remember somebody who watches the class said to me that they get chizuk from the class. So I looked up, what is Rabbi Nachman's number one lesson on chizuk, on strengthening yourself to deal with the difficulties in life? And that's the Torah that we're going to learn, which is part 2, lesson 5, Tneinã, Torah Hey. In a few minutes, I just want to, since tonight is the end of Yom HaZikaron, the beginning of Yom HaAtzmaut, I wanted to address the 2 days. So we see we're now in the 75th anniversary of the State of Israel, which is pretty amazing, and should we all be healthy, Bezat Hashem, we'll see the 100th anniversary of the State of Israel, Bezat Hashem. And some people are despairing these days because, if you read at least the English media, I listen to a lot of Hebrew media, but I don't read so much Hebrew media. You'll see that people feel like, the country's coming to an end. So first of all, this is nothing like the crises that the country dealt with Oslo and the withdrawal from Gaza, for example, where many more than 200,000 people were protesting in the streets. And I think I've been giving it a lot of thought, been reading a lot, and really what we're seeing is the clash of 2 Jewish communities that were here at the beginning of the state. So first we had the Haredim that actually came in the early 1700s, mid-1700s, the students of the Baal Shem Tov and the Gra, the Gaon Mevilna. And they lived here. They were happy to be poor Jews that lived off of donations from Europe. And then came, as they call them, the Tzionim. The Zionists came. These were secular Ashkenazi Jews who saw the land of Israel as a place to basically save their bodies and their souls. And now we have this clash between these two great communities. And I'm not worried about it at all. And I think this lesson addresses that. We're going to start off in just a second. You know, the people that are running around saying, oh, the country's coming to an end and the third temple is going to be destroyed, and all this crazy talk. These are simply people that are lacking emunah. That's all it comes down to. We don't understand how the state could be established. It doesn't make any sense logically in any way whatsoever. Forget about the state being established. What about the Hebrew language being revived? These are miracles that we've seen in our lifetime, and they're also prophecies that you can find in the Torah, where it says the Jewish people will be restored to the land of Israel. And here we are. So we're living in miraculous times, and to think that this is kochi ve'otzim yadi asale d'chayil hazeh, that me and my strength and my ego and my power created this state, is really missing the point. It's clearly a miracle from Hashem, and even though I don't say Hallel an Yom HaAtzmaut, I do acknowledge that the establishment of the state of Israel is a great miracle in our time, and we're very fortunate to be living here and be living in this time. There's no question about it. Okay, so we're starting off with Torah Hey, and it starts off, so this, at the beginning of each lesson, Reb Nassim would give a little introduction when this Torah was said. Torah zo ne'amra bebreslav berosh Hashanah Taf Kuf Ayin. So it was given in the year Taf Kuf Ayin, which is, I'm not good at the dates. I'm guessing is 1790 something. Shechal b'yamim sheni v'shlishi. So this is on Tuesday and Wednesday with Rosh Hashanah, and he starts off with the phrases. Rabbi Nachman starts off most lessons with the phrase from Tanakh, or this is from Tehillim. Tiku b'chodesh shofar b'keser liyom chagenu ki chok liYisrael u'mishpat le'elokei Yaakov. That you should blow the shofar at the moon's renewal, when the moon is covered on the festive day, and it's a statute for Israel, a mishpat unto the Lord Yaakov. So we say this before we make Kiddush on Yom Tov. This is what we say. Tiku b'chodesh shofar b'keser liyom chagenu ki chok liYisrael hu mishpat le'elokei Yaakov. And then we say, Savi ma'anan, Baruch atah Hashem, borei pri hagafen. So this is where he's starting off. Blow the shofar, basically for the holiday. And ha-nidrash b'gemara, and it's given over in the Gemara on Rosh Hashanah. Daf Chet, on Rosh Hashanah, b'sof ha-Torah, yive'er ha-remez b'pasuk zeh. So at the end of this Torah, which I don't know how long it'll take us to finish, I don't know if we're going to go word for word through the whole Torah, because it turns out, Torah zo, hi ha-Torah ha'aruka biyoter b'Likutey Moharan. This is the longest Torah in all of Likutey Moharan. So, first we can learn something from that. If the longest Torah in Likutey Moharan is a Torah about emunah, which we didn't get to that, so it says here, the first sentence after that is, Ha'ikar shekol haTorah v'mitzvot hu emunah. The purpose, the goal of the whole Torah and mitzvot is emunah. So if the longest lesson in Likutey Moharan is about emunah, is about faith in Hashem, then we can learn that this is really the message that Rabbi Nachman is coming to teach us. So this morning, I asked Mechavuta, Rav Cheshen, if you were to summarize all of Likutey Moharan, all the lessons that Rabbi Nachman gave in one sentence, what would it be? And without hesitating, he said, Ve'ein shum yi'ush be'olam klam. And there's no despair at all. And from that you can extrapolate basically almost all of the Torahs that Rabbi Nachman gives. Some of them are very specific, but the general idea in Likutey Moharan. If we're going to take Chabad Hasidus as just another example to put the two one across from the other, so Chabad Hasidus is about bittul, is about nullifying your ego, subjugating your ego, in order to serve Hashem. That's what a lot of Chabad Hasidus is about. Breslov Hasidus is about being joyous through emunah, through having faith in Hashem. Which is why I said that if a person feels like here in the 75th anniversary of the State of Israel, that the country is doomed, I mean, you don't see how many miracles, so many miracles happened for this country to exist. It's Ben Gurion is quoted that if you don't believe in miracles, you're not a realist. When it comes to Israel, if you don't believe in miracles, you're not a realist. And that's really what it is. So there's certainly nothing to worry about. And hopefully people will learn to respect one another and get along with one another and will be able to thrive as a people here. So the fact that this is the longest Torah in the Likutey Moharan, which is teaching about emunah, comes to teach us that emunah is the ikar of Rabbi Nachman's teachings. And what does it mean that ve'ein shum miyush ba'olam klal, that there's no despair in the world at all? So I'm guessing people that are watching this lesson, I can speak for myself, I have reached a place of despair. So how can Rabbi Nachman say there's no such thing as despair? It doesn't make sense. That's like saying there's no such thing as sweating when you work out. I work out and I sweat. So how could Rabbi Nachman say such a thing? What he means is that no matter how far down you think you've gone, you haven't gone down as far as a person can go. No matter how low you are, you can always get back up. I guess you could say it in different words. Ve'ein shum yi'ush ba'olam klal. You could say ve'ein shum yi'ush klal ba'olam. You could change the order of the words. There's no absolute, total despair in the world. That a person, no matter how far they go down, he's saying to them, you can still get up. There's always going to be a little crack in the stone, in the bedrock, to bring in a tiny ray of light to show you that you can get out of the darkness. And now he's saying, and this is the beginning of this Torah, so I'll give the introduction of the Yotei Or. Yivaer she'ikar hayadut hi ha'emunah. He's going to explain that the main idea of Judaism is emunah. Now we know this. We learned this once before. Yesod kol Torah. Where is it? כמבואר בליקוטי הלכות, וזה לשון. אי אפשר להתדבק ולהתקרב להשם יתברך באמת. It's impossible for a person to be attached to and come close to Hashem truly, כי אם על ידי אמונה. Unless you have emunah, unless you have faith in Hashem. It's the only way that a person can truly come close to Hashem. Shehi yesod kol Torah kulan. That this is the foundation of the entire Torah. Kamo she'amru, as it said in Makot, Masechet Makot, Ba Chabakuk v'hamidan al echad. Chabakuk, who was one of the prophets, came and took the whole Torah and put it in one short sentence. V'tzadik be'emunato yiyeh. The tzaddik and his faith will live. The tzaddik lives in his faith, meaning that the whole Torah is faith. V'chol ha'olamot. So, and then he says, and then he brings a quote from Tehillim. Kol mitzvotecha emunah. All of the mitzvot, all of the commandments. And what are the commandments? They are the way that we, as finite human beings, connect with the infinite Ein Sof, infinite God. We do it through mitzvot, which we've talked about many times. What are all the mitzvot? Essentially, the mitzvot are channels, are tools to bring us to emunah, to faith in Hashem. V'chol ha'olamot. Okay, then he says, all of the worlds, kulam omdim rak al emunah. The whole world exists only by faith. V'chol ma'asehu be'emunah. And all of his actions are done with faith. So he says, Yivaer she'ikar hayadut hi ha'emunah. Rabbi Nachman is going to explain that the whole, basically the essence of the Jewish religion, Judaism, is emunah, faith in Hashem. ולכן צריך לבדוק תמיד ולחפש באיזה מדרגה הוא נמצא. And so a person has to always check themselves and search within themselves and ask themselves, on what level of faith in Hashem am I on? V'gam ki kol harefuah tluya be'emunah. And also, all healing is dependent on faith. So that's the introduction to this section. Ha'ikar shekol Torah v'amitzvot hu ha'emunah. The basis, the main idea behind the whole Torah and all the mitzvot is emunah, meaning that it's bringing you to have emunah, to have faith in Hashem, and to build your emunah. Shehi yesod kol Torah kula, which is the foundation of the whole Torah, which is what I read before from Habakkuk. V'tzarich kol echad lechapes et atzmo ulechazek et atzmo be'emunah. Everybody has to look within, search within themselves, and strengthen themselves in their emunah, in their faith in Hashem. Lechazek et emunah shenishpat lo milmala ulehagdila. That a person has to strengthen the faith that's being brought down, channeled down from above. Hashem is giving you the opportunity to have faith, and you need to increase it. Where's footnote number 7? Katav be'etzot hamevuraot. So this is one of the Breslov books. The clarified, the explained advices. Ve'asor liyityaesh v'lihitrapot legamre min ha'emunah. It's forbidden for a person to completely give up and distance themselves from faith. Meaning that it's forbidden for a person to say, I tried having faith in Hashem, it doesn't work. Biglan shemaugish ki ha'emunah eina shlema karaoi. Because the person feels like they don't have total faith in Hashem. Adrabah. On the contrary, kasher maugishim ki ha'emunah eina shlema. When a person feels that their faith is incomplete, chayavim litchazek im me'at ha'emunah hakayemet. You have to strengthen yourself with the little tiny bit of emunah, of faith that you have. Uliyishtadel lehaba betikun bechizuk ha'emunah biyoter. And make an effort to bring about a fixing, a repairing, and strengthening of their emunah. Ubiikar ha'emunah ba'ashkacha pratit ad kan leshono. And specifically, emunah in a person's divine intervention or Hashem's particular intervention in a person's life. So we're talking about general emunah. For example, the example that I gave when people are feeling despair. They say, the state of Israel is doomed, or Iran is going to bomb us all, or all of these crazy things that you have no control over anyhow. That's general emunah. If a person is walking around depressed over these things, it's really a lack of emunah. And then he says, but specifically for your own life, because all of us have our own struggles and difficulties in life. And he says, there you also have to strengthen your faith. Not just like, I have faith that Mashiach is coming. No, I have faith that Hashem can help me pay my bills. I have faith that Hashem can help me cover all of my debts. I have faith that Hashem can heal me. Even if doctors say that I can't be healed, I have faith that Hashem can heal me. Even if I feel like I could never figure out how to pay off all my debts, I have faith that Hashem could figure out how to pay off all my debts. That's the whole purpose of being here. And we talk about this practically in every lesson. What's the point of the neshama, of the soul, coming into the body if it's already in the supernal realms, if it's already in the highest place? Right? Hashem creates, we learn this whole lesson about Bo and Paro, lesson Samech Dalet 64, we spent months learning it. That what is this world? Hashem created a Chalal Panui. Hashem created an empty space. Imagine this box, taking it, and within it is this space, this vacant space, that's this world. And what does Hashem do? He takes this physical body and puts a soul, which is eternal, in the physical body, in this world where there's absolute evil and absolute good. and there isn't justice that can be seen with your naked eye. And you say, why does my pure soul need to come down into this world? It was already in the highest places. And we learned lesson after lesson about this, so we know the reason. Because Hashem loves us. So you'd say, oh really? If I loved my child, would I take them out of their warm, comfortable home and throw them into some jungle in Africa without any money and say, good luck? How would that be love for my child? So in a sense, that's what Hashem is doing, except it's not putting us through that type of hardship. It's putting us through the hardship of making choices, of saying, how am I going to deal with this problem and how am I going to deal with this problem? Some problems are good. Imagine a person inherits $1 million. That's a good problem, but it's still a problem because now you're responsible for that $1 million. And imagine a person has debts. That's also a problem. There are different types of problems. The soul came down into this world in order to make choices. But in order to make choices with a clear mind, you have to have emunah. You have to have faith in Hashem. You have to know that Hashem can do more than you personally can do. And that is the whole purpose. Ula osif, so he says, לחזק את האמונה הנשבעת לו מלמעלה או להגדילה, to strengthen the faith that's coming down from heaven, and to increase it, ולהוסיף בה תוספת הערה וחיות ומוחין, and to add to it more light and vitality and mental energy into your faith. ודבר זה נעשה על ידי כך שמסלק דעתו ומוחו לגמרי ויאמין בהשם יתברך. And how do you do this? How do you add light and vitality and, what would you say it, and being consciously aware of emunah? You do it by taking your thoughts and getting rid of them completely and only having faith in Hashem. And you understand that on a practical level. A person feels like they're in a place that they can't ever figure out how to get out. He says, okay, now stop trying to figure it out and just say, Hashem, I can't figure it out. It's on you. I've done this many times. I've told stories about how I had liens on my bank account, and the woman, the head of the collections department of the bank, would call me, and she'd say, how are you going to get money in the bank account by the end of the day? And I say, well, I'm davening, and the rest is up to Hashem. And really, it's quite amazing how every time Hashem figured it out. If I tried to figure it out, if I could figure it out, I wouldn't have gotten into that place in the first place. So he says, how do you get to this place of having total faith in Hashem? You got to take your thoughts, take them out of your head. Meaning, stop trying to run on the hamster treadmill and figure out, how am I going to solve this, how am I going to solve this, how am I going to solve this, which of course is a natural reaction. We all do it, but at some point you say, look, I don't know how to solve it. I have to trust in Hashem. So he says here, Likutey Moharan, as explained in Likutey Moharan, and this is what he says. Ikar emunah hi b'chinat behema. The main aspect of emunah is like an animal. Ki ikar shleimut ha'emunah hu sheyisalek da'ato v'chokhmato legamrei v'yasim atzmo kebehema. I love this. It's like so simple. How do you have faith? How do you have complete faith in Hashem? Take your thoughts and your wisdom and take them out of your head and make it like an animal. Right? Because an animal might think, I'm going to go here, I'm going to go there. But at some point, you have an animal, especially in a leash, the animal is simply going to follow you. It's not going to start thinking, maybe, oh, Barak over there that's leading me, what does he know? It's just going to follow you. You have to get your thoughts to follow, believing in Hashem like you would leading an animal in the woods. To believe in Hashem to have faith in Hashem and the true tzaddikim. When he says true tzaddikim, he means we're learning a lesson in Likutey Moharan. We're getting words of wisdom that come from out of this world, from a true tzaddik, and you have to trust the words that Rabbi Nachman is saying. Believe in Hashem, and you believe in the words of the tzaddik. And then, and just that, be'emunah shlema, with complete faith. Ki hikar emunah hi b'ma she'ein hasechel mevin. What is the main attribute, the main aspect of emunah, of having faith in Hashem? It's something that the intellect cannot grasp. Ki b'ma she'mevinim b'sechel ein shayach emunah. Because something that you can understand intellectually, you don't need emunah. I don't need emunah to know that 1 + 1 is 2. I don't need 1, 1. Here I've got 2 of them. I count 1, 2. I know I've got 2. Things like that, you don't need emunah. But if somebody says to me, but would I need emunah? Well, I mean, my greatest example for emunah is when my 2 children got married within a month and a half of each other. And it was so far beyond anything that I could have paid for. I couldn't imagine how I could pay for it. And somehow it was paid for. I mean, people gave money and people gave discounts and all kinds of things happened that I didn't expect. But that only came about through emunah. Because if I had said, well, I have to figure out how to do all of this, there isn't any place for Hashem. If I'm taking up all the space, there's no room for Hashem. And I'd really rather not get to that point again. When my next child gets married, V'ezrat Hashem, they should all get married. I would love to just have the money in the bank. But if not, the only other choice I have is emunah, is trust in Hashem. And it goes that way for many things in my life. Ki yesh sovlei chalaim, there are those that suffer afflictions. Sheyesh lehem makot muflaot, that they have these supernatural suffering, pliot she'einam mederech hateva, types of wondrous suffering that doesn't make any sense in the natural world. Meaning that there are people that suffer enormously. There's all kinds of crazy stuff. I don't want to describe it. Shelo nida, she wouldn't know from these things. But you can imagine, somebody who gets this disease and then gets this financial problem and then gets into this accident and then this happens to them and that happens to them, like crazy things like that. Vehem sovlim hachalaim, and they suffer from these afflictions, rak bishvil nifilat emunah, only because of a lack of emunah. Now that's really hard to swallow. You mean to tell me that all of the stuff that I'm suffering in my life, it's only from a lack of emunah? But I'm going to take it at face value. That's what Rabbi Nachman is saying. Really what he's saying is that if you were on a truly high level, you might still have afflictions, but you probably wouldn't be suffering. B'bchinat ha'ketuv b'tochacha, as it's written in the rebukes in Sefer Dvarim, v'hifla Hashem et makotcha, makot gedolot ve'hane'emanot ve'chalaim ra'im ve'ne'emanim. So he's bringing now a text proof from the Torah. Where is it? God will make your plagues astounding, great, and relentless plagues, terrible, and ne'emanim, faithful illnesses. So now he wants to know, why are we using the word here, ne'emanim? V'ne'emanim daika, he says specifically, ne'emanim, kihem ba'im al yidei pgam emunah. Why are these afflictions coming to a person? They're coming because of a lack of emunah. Ki al yedei nefilat ha'emunah ba'im makot muflaot. It's only because of a lack of emunah that a person suffers inhealable afflictions, you could say. She'ein mo'ir lehem lo refuot, velo tefila, velo zchut avot. That nothing is going to heal this person. Not medicine, and not davening, and not even the merit of tzaddikim, forefathers, ancestors. Meaning, Nothing is going to heal this person. Ubezeh heim muflaot umeshunot, and this is what makes them different and wondrous. There are people who have taken all kinds of medications, have gone through all kinds of surgeries, who have done all kinds of davening and given tzedakah in all kinds of places, and they're still suffering from afflictions. Sha'af b'derech klal mo'ed refuah, even though normally their afflictions can be healed by medication, or tefillah, or davening, or zchut avot, or in the merit of your ancestors. Lemachalot ke'ela, but these types of sicknesses, ulam hamachalot shebaot mipikam emunah, even though they come from a lack of emunah, heim muflaot umeshunot bekach, they are different and wondrous in such a way, ki lo mo'il lehem kol hanal. Why? What makes them so different and wondrous is that none of the things listed above can heal the person and solve the problem. ועתה יבאר מדוע שלושת דברים אלו אינם מועילים מנפגמת האמונה. And now he's going to say why none of these ways of normally what would work to heal a person can heal a person. He's going to now go into it in a deeper level. So I'm going to give you the short answer before we get into the deeper level. We've got another 20 minutes or so. And then I'll tell the story, which I have to think of something. Zot Hashem. Why is the person lacking in emunah? Why are they still sick? He's saying it's from a lack of emunah. So a person goes, and it's pretty simple. A person is sick. Let's just take the simplest example that he gives here. A person is sick. They go to the doctor. The doctor says, you take this medication, do this treatment, do this surgery, and they do it, and they're still sick. They continue trying all these different things. They kind of give up on medicine. And then they say, okay, I'm going to daven. And they start davening. It doesn't help them. They go to the graves of tzaddikim. They give tzedakah. It doesn't help them. What Rabbi Nachman is saying is that all of these things are external. You're trying to solve your problem, which is a physical problem, by trying to treat it in an external way. He's saying that this physical problem is not caused by something external. It's caused by something internal. And the internal thing is a lack of faith in Hashem. And a person can be very frustrated because they say, look at all the things that I'm doing in order to heal myself. He says you have to have complete faith in Hashem. You have to take your intellect and push it aside. And it's not saying not to do things, and just to be clear, he's not saying, oh, I'm just not going to go to doctors, I'm just going to have emunah. No, you go to doctors, but do you believe in the doctors, or do you believe in Hashem? This is what we were talking about when I was giving these lessons during Corona, and that's one of the reasons that nobody's physically sitting here, and people watch online now. In those days, people used to come physically to the class. In the times of Corona, so I was saying that no matter where you stand, vaccinated, don't vaccine, wear a mask, don't wear a mask, whatever it is, it doesn't really matter. You do what you think is right for you. Just know that it's Hashem that does the healing. That is the point here, that a person will do what they have to do. You take the medication you need to, you do the surgeries that you need to, you do the things that you need to, but you don't think that the surgery or the medication is healing you. You know that Hashem is healing you. And that Hashem gave power to the medicine and to the doctor to heal. We talked about that also in another lesson. You would think it's incredible, chutzpah, that a person, a religious person that believes in God, would even go to a doctor, which is why there's Christian Scientists, which I think got the message wrong. Christian Scientists say, well, we just believe in God, we don't go to doctors. No, you go to a doctor, but you believe that the doctor was given the power to heal from Hashem. And that emunah is there in order to make the connection with Hashem, which is the whole purpose of this world existing. To take the soul, which was given the gift of existence, put it in a world of free will with absolute good and absolute evil, and absolute equal choices, or sometimes even harder choices. Would you rather be watching Netflix or watching this lesson? most people would rather be watching Netflix. You'd really have to bring yourself to a higher level to want to watch this lesson over Netflix. But if the two of them are equal, you get a choice. So that when the soul finally leaves the body, and everybody's soul at some point leaves the body is physical, the body dies. The soul is eternal, it never dies. Where is the soul, right? I don't remember where I heard this once, but either it was a surgeon or it was the first Russian astronaut, the Soviet astronaut that went into space. They said to him, so what do you see there? He said, well, I don't see God. That's just because he apparently thought God was a man in the sky, which God is not. And if a person says, well, I am a doctor, I'm a surgeon, I've been through the whole body and I didn't find anything that's a soul, it's because the soul is not something physical. The soul is something that exists within us. And we all know that when a person dies, no matter how healthy the body was, when the soul is removed from the body is dead. So it's not something that we see. And that soul lives on forever in the supernal worlds. And it goes back up to where it was. And it recounts what it did in this world. And it's judged on what it did in this world. And basically, you look back at what you did in this world and you say, now I earned my existence. Picture a person that grew up in a wealthy home where everything was provided for them. Either they'd probably be depressed or a spoiled brat and people couldn't stand them. Or a lot of people, I'm assuming, will want to challenge themselves in one way or another. Musically, intellectually, physically. And some people will say, I'm giving up all of my privilege and money and everything. I want to earn it on my own. The soul wants to earn its existence on its own, and that's what it's doing in this world. But we forgot that we have to reconnect with Hashem. And every time we reconnect with Hashem, we're doing what we were meant to do when the whole world was created. And when a person is sick, Rabbi Nachman has a Torah about this. This is where does sickness come from? It's the soul saying, hey, you're not doing what you're supposed to in this world, so I'm checking out. I'm leaving. And when the soul tries to leave the body gets sick. Now I'm sure there's other reasons why people get sick. There are actual viruses in the physical world and the way that it's made. But there are times when a person gets sick because the soul says, you're not doing what you're supposed to. Then a person changes their diet, changes their habits, changes their way of living. And the soul says, you do know how to change. So now that you know how to change to get healthy, start changing in order to reconnect with Hashem through emunah, through faith, which is the whole purpose. And that's the reason the soul wants to be here. Okay, so now we're going to go deeper into this idea. Ki kol harefuot hem alidei asavim. All healing comes from vegetation. Right? And we know that all of the medication that we have today at some point came from natural sources. I'm not a pharmacist or a doctor, but I just know the general concept that basically pharmaceutical companies, somebody had a headache, they would go to tribal people and they would say, what did you do for headaches? They say, we used this plant. They would go and extract whatever it is in the plant that helped a person to stop having a headache, and then manipulate it in a lab and put it into a pill and sell it as medication. So all of the medication in the world comes from vegetation. V'hem gdalim mikoach hagshamim hayordim rak al yedei emunah. And where do the plants and vegetation, where all healing comes from? It comes from the rains that come down from the heaven. And where do the rains come from? The rains come from emunah, comes from our faith. Ksheha emunah b'madriga gvoa ma'od, when a person's emunah is on a very high level, kvar lo tzarich shum asavim, the person doesn't need any herbs. They don't need any medication. Ela rak tefillah, only davening. Ukmo heviu the il, as it was brought above in Torah Gimel, which we haven't learned. Medivrei Rambam, Midvrei Rabbeinu, she'ein makom lerofeh verefuot bebeit hama'amin. So he's saying the Rambam, who himself was a world-renowned doctor, He said somebody who has a true high level of faith, they won't ever need medication and they won't ever need a doctor. And I'll just give you an example. I don't know if this is the level of faith that the Rambam is talking about, but the Lubavitcher Rebbe had a stroke. I don't remember. He was 70 years old. It was 1977. Whatever it was, something with sevens in it. So of course 770. The last Lubavitcher Rebbe had a stroke. I believe it was around Simchat Torah, and he was moved to his office, and he stayed in his office for a month or something like that. And at some point, like, he slept in the office, he lived in the office for a month, and the doctor would visit him every day. And at some point, the Rebbe was like, okay, it's time for me now to go out and speak to the Hasidim. And the Rebbe said, the doctor said to him, Rebbe, you should know there's a 75% chance of your heart attack coming back if you strain yourself right now. And the Rebbe smiles, and he looks at him, he says, so you're telling me there's a 25% chance that I'm going to be healthy. And of course, the Rebbe went to speak, and I think he did have another heart attack, but then he lived to 90-something when he had a stroke, and then that was it, he died. But this idea of where are you going to put your faith? You're going to put your faith in the 75%, or you're going to say, I'm putting my faith in Hashem. Now, I'm not telling somebody that, God forbid, had a heart attack, and the doctor tells them you need to rest to start get up and doing things. I'm just giving you the example of how the Rebbe chose to look at things in a positive way. And what the Rambam is saying is that if a person's on a very high level, and I would say super high level, they probably have so much emunah, trust in Hashem, faith in Hashem, that they don't ever need a doctor to come here. And now we're talking about it in a general way. She'alidei koach ha'emunah she'am Yisrael ma'aminim ba'Hashem yesh koach refuah ba'asavim. That the level of faith that the Jewish people have in Hashem is the level of the healing that you can get from medication, from herbs. And since all vegetation grows as a result of emunah, and so if there's a person's faith is damaged, like an individual, their faith is damaged, לפעמים תהיה זו סיבה שלא יועילו לו הרפואות. This could be a reason that medication doesn't heal the person. אבל אין זה סותר למה שרואים בחוש, but this doesn't contradict what we see in physicality in the world, שמועילים רפואות לחופרים ואפיקורסים here we see that medication heals people that have no emunah. Not only that, they're heretics, or they even take religion in order to convince others to not be religious, like the complete opposite end of the spectrum. We're just coming to clarify that the general idea that there's power in medicinal herbs to heal. This is because the Jewish people have faith. So he's saying that, yeah, there might be non-Jews and people that are heretics and they take medication, they heal, but the only reason they heal is because the Jewish people have faith in Hashem. I don't know, to me it's mind-blowing. ולכן במינה כנגד מידה, ייתכן שמי שפגם באמונה יענש בזה בעצמו שלא יועילו לו רפואות. And so since everything is measure for measure, it comes about that a person that has a lack of faith, or their faith is not complete, and they're punished by a sickness, it won't help them to take medication. Okay, so Kamo she'amru Rabbeinu Zichronam, the sage of the blessed memory said, Ein akshamim yordim ela b'zchut ha'emunah. Why does the rain come down? It's only because of faith. And then he brings a quote here from Tehillim, Shene'amar, Emet me'eretz titzmach, truth sprouts from the land, V'tzedek mishamayim nishkaf, and righteousness is drawn down from the heavens. Bezman she'emet me'eretz titzmach, in the time when truth is sprouting from the earth, sheyesh emunah b'maseh matan, when a person has faith in their business transactions, as tzedek mishamayim nishkaf, then righteousness can come down from heaven. Dahainu hakshamim, that is the rains, and also kshamim, of course, means gashmiyut, means physicality, means parnasa. Shehem tzedakah yodim mishamayim. What is a person's livelihood? It's tzedakah, it's charity, it's righteousness that's coming down from heaven. And everybody knows, everybody's probably seen two businesses, one right next to the other. One is successful, the other goes out of business. Or two brothers, one makes a lot of money, the other one doesn't. And it's not just with money. One is healthy, the other isn't. One has healthy relationships, the other one doesn't. One has an ability to learn, the other one doesn't. So you could say all of that is Geshem. Where is that Geshem coming from? It's coming from emunah. Which reminds me, maybe that's a story that I'll tell. Harei, and now I think we're going to finish with this. Harei sheyesh emunah ba'olam. There is, so this is quoting Rashi, that there's faith in the world, as yodim kshamim v'tzomchim asavim. When there's faith in the world, then the rains can come down, and they can cause the vegetation to grow. V'azay yoshev refuot. And then there's healing. So the healing, you can understand, has come from the medicinal herbs, or maybe it comes from food, maybe it comes from water. Aval al yedei nefilat ha'emunah ein gshamim. When a person has a lack of faith, then there's no rain. Va'azai ein refu'ah. And then there's no healing. Okay, let's leave it at that. I'm going to tell a short story, and then we're going to finish for tonight. So, where is this idea of emunah with the rains? So, of course, anybody who's ever planted anything, anybody who's ever baked bread, anybody who's done anything where they put their effort into it, and then they know from beyond that point, Hashem has to take care of it. For that, a person has to have emunah. He says, it's true, a person can heal even without emunah, but that's because of the emunah of the Jewish people. And imagine a farmer. Look at the farmers in the desert here. They farm and they trust that the rains will come, and that the water will come, and that the water will give what the seeds need, and the seeds will grow. It reminds me of the story. I don't remember all the details of the story. It was sometime around 1950. There was a religious, I don't know if it was a kibbutz or a moshav, that was trying to grow vegetables in the desert, and there was a secular kibbutz nearby, and these religious Jews had no idea what they're doing, and the secular kibbutz had trained agriculturalists, and it came Shemitah year, and the kibbutz, I think it was Komamiyut was the name of the kibbutz, they went to their rabbi, who was like the mashkiach, was the spiritual advisor for the kibbutz, and they said, now it's Shemitah, do we really have to let the land lay fallow? And the rabbi said, yes. And the kibbutz kept planting, and the kibbutz had lots of food and water, and these guys, whatever grows in Shemitah, if something grows, you're allowed to eat it, but you're not allowed to plant it and cultivate it. And so the year ended, and they wanted to plant new seeds, and they went to the kibbutz, and they said, you have any seeds for us? And they said, well, we have this. They showed them like a shed of mud and worms and rotten seed. And they said, you can have this seed for free. And they were kind of like laughing at the religious Jews in this kibbutz, and having no choice, because there were no other seeds to plant, they took the seeds from the kibbutz, the rotten, disgusting, wormy stuff, and they planted it, and it was like the miracle in the desert. They had the greatest crop of any farm in all of Israel that year. And then the kibbutz came to them and sued them, because they said that they stole their seed, even though they had given it to them for free and it was rotten and the kibbutz didn't want it. And they went to the rabbi and they said, what are we supposed to do? They're suing us. They want us to pay for this rotten seed. And he said, you have to pay them for it because they're allowed to come and ask you afterwards for payment. I guess halachically they were allowed to. And so the Moshav paid them and they got a lot of press. And people understood that the reason that these rotten seeds grew was because of their faith in Hashem. So, anybody who plants something, you're trusting, even if you're watering it on your own, you're still trusting that that seed is going to break down and sprout and grow something. And you have to have emunah for that. Anybody who bakes bread, I bake bread every Shabbos, every Friday for Shabbos. I bake 2 types of bread. I've been doing it since I was probably 19 or 20 for many years. And you have to have emunah when you bake bread. Of course, you need to know what you're doing, but you also have to have emunah. And he says, this emunah, that we believe that something is going to grow. We believe that something is going to heal. When somebody breaks a bone and it's mended by the doctor, they believe that that bone is going to heal. And their belief has power. The belief that it's going to heal has power. I think there's some studies that were done with plants, where some of them, the person who was taking care of the plants would say, I love you, I love you, I love you. And to the other one, I hate you, I hate you, I hate you. And whether this is true or not, it's still a good example. You have emunah in my bread. Thank you, Yael. The plants, we can look it up afterwards. The plants that were told that I love you, they sprouted beautifully, and the ones who were told I hate you, they kind of shriveled and died. Your thoughts affect your life and affect your body. And the thoughts of emunah have the greatest power. So the last story for Yom HaZikaron, Yom HaAtzmaut. I've told this story before. I also told it on my podcast. Here, I'm going to put Akiva's name in here so I'll remember to mention it next week. Bezat Hashem. Akiva Moshe ben Reuven and Chasha Shifra Halevi. Alav Shalom. Kind of hard to believe when somebody your age, somebody who would watch a lesson, just like you guys are watching it now, just dies like that. Right? That's how it goes. So, Reb Shlomo Karlbach was once brought to this apartment in Tel Aviv by this guy, a religious Jew, whose son had become secular. He was an officer in the tank corps in the army. This was before the 67 war. And he says to Shlomo, maybe you can talk with my son, you can inspire him to want to keep Torah and mitzvot. So Shlomo talks with him, and on the wall was this big picture of the father's grandfather, like a big beard and a big kippah, like a serious religious looking guy. And Shlomo is talking with the son, who's the officer in the army. He says, look at your great grandfather there on the wall. That's like a real religious Jew. Doesn't that inspire you to want to be Jewish? And he says, no, I look at that and I see weak. I see ghetto. I see a sheep brought to the slaughter. I see the opposite of what I want to be. I'm an officer in the tank corps. I have power. I drive a tank. That's what I believe in. So Shlomo says, okay, brother, I bless you. Hashem should keep you safe and healthy. And then comes the 67 war, and Shlomo came here, and it might have been like a year after the war. The guy sees Shlomo again, and he says, I want you to come and talk with my son. Shlomo says, sure, I'll come and talk with your son. He walks in the apartment in Tel Aviv, and the guy's son now has a big beard, the kippah, tzitziot. Shlomo says to him, what happened? So he said, I'll tell you my story. He said, I'm a tankist. That's what I believe in. I believe in the power of the IDF. I believe the power of the military and the power of my tank. He said, here I was in Sinai, and we're heading towards the Egyptians, and all of a sudden they surprise us. They're coming from all different directions. He said, all the other tanks were blown up. Everyone was killed. The only one was left was me in my tank. He said, I'm trying to get back to the army. I'm driving as fast as I can in the desert. He said, all these tanks are chasing me, and there's no way for me to get out. He said, in the middle of the desert, in the middle of the sand, I see somebody wearing black, a black hat, a white shirt. He's wrapping tefillin with the talis in the middle of the desert. And I think to myself, what is this crazy person doing? Doesn't he know this is a war? He's standing in the middle of the desert wrapping tefillin in the middle of a war? So he said, I decided I'm going to run him over. I mean, that's what he deserves. He's an idiot. I'm driving my tank towards him. I'm going to run him over. He said, but the last minute I couldn't do it. I swerved to the side, went around him. In the meantime, all the Egyptian tanks are coming after me. One of them runs over him, blows up. There was a mine underneath him. When the other Egyptian tanks saw that one of the tanks was blown up, they all turned around and drove back. He said, that's my story. And Shlomo's looking at him and saying, is there something more to the story? He says, yeah. When I came back home, I looked at this picture on the wall, my great-great-grandfather, and I realized that was the Jew standing in the desert putting on tefillin. He said, my great-great-grandfather had come back down from heaven to save me from being blown up in the war. And when I came back home, decided it's time for me to re-embrace my religious roots. We should know that our ancestors are watching us and watching and davening for us. And we might feel sometimes like we can't make it in this world. But you can. And the secret to making it in this world is emunah. So thank you everyone for watching. We'll continue next week, B'ezrat Hashem. Those that are celebrating Yom Ha'atzmaut, you should have a Chag Sameach. And even though I don't really celebrate Yom Ha'atzmaut, I have children and they like having mangals. So I'm going to go on soccer tomorrow. We're calling it forced fun. Yehi koach, everyone. Zai Gesund.